Okay, welcome everybody. Today's the 20th of September. It is our, I believe, 13th Gno.land public dev call. I've shared the agenda issue 31 here in the chat. So maybe we get started with the no contributor updates. We actually have a new contributor. So we have Dragos, who's working on Flipando. Dragos, do you want to introduce yourself, introduce Flipando? Yeah, give a little bit of background.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So my name is Dragos. I'm a mobile app developer for like 10 plus years. I currently have a day job in the traditional part of the world that deals with building apps that are, not crypto. But I've been in crypto with side projects for about, let's say, 7 years, constantly. I'm mostly attracted about the technical part, not the trading part. I am currently working on a project called Flipando on a grant. There are a few blurbs about it in the issue, in the hackerspace repo that Michelle said. So you can actually get the deeper gist over there if you want to know more details about it. In short, but I will just give you an overview of this project. It's a very simple memory game, fully on chain. It started as a side project for me to learn Solidity. To my surprise, this spring it won 2 hackathons in Korea. So I kind of realized it's a project worth pursuing. So I applied. Being such a simple game, it actually flips the narrative in the sense that it can be deployed relatively easy on any EVM machine. And we can set up a few metrics that kind of show the engagement and probably the behavior of users on each of these EVM's chains. As of now, in the EVM version is not public yet. There is no URL for it, but the game is the smart contracts. There are like 5 smart contracts in the entire game are deployed on 9 or 11 EVM chains, including 2 of them into EVMOS, one of them in Cosmos ecosystem, EVMOS, 2 rollups in Ethereum, even on Near protocol using Aurora. I am currently porting this game in the Gno ecosystem, trying to see again which user intersection can be more profitable or more interesting for this kind of engagement. Again, if you need more details, please have a look at the hackerspace that Michelle shared, and that's pretty much all the time that I think I can grab from you because it's already plus 7 minutes, so you need to be fast. Thank you, guys. It's very nice to be here, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe that we've talked a little bit with Dragos. Mirosh is also working quite a lot with this initiative too, but we talked about maybe I think end of September, mid-October, doing a demo of Flipando. So then we'll have actually 2 games on Gno.land. Okay, shall we move on since it's short? On Black, do you guys want to give us an update on how things are going on your end?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to make it quick. I first want to share the link to the agenda that I'll be walking guys through, and starting with what we covered for the last couple of weeks. For GnoSwap, we've been working on the GnoSwap interface, specifically the graphs for positions and some components for adding and removing liquidity and incentivizing pools. And as for the contract side or realms, we've modified the staking mechanisms for applying absolute warm-up periods, and we've improved our test cases. And we've also released a UI sneak peek covering our landing page, which you can find on our Twitter. And moving on to the Gno core, we have 3 PRs that are ready for review. The first one is PR 1112, fix copy value and CV map. And the second one is number 875, change the nom of coin that minted by banker. And the last one is PR number 891, which is std.testsetprep realm. And as I mentioned, all of these are ready for review. So if anyone has time, we'd appreciate it if you could help us out with the review. And as for other contributions, we started Gnodesk, which is a weekly news series that we'll be uploading to the Medium of Unblock. And we've started this series to basically gather all the information from various channels that Gno.land communicates with, including these dev calls or Twitter or issues on GitHub, etc. So check that out if you can't make it to any of these venues, basically. And that's pretty much it for what we covered for the last couple of weeks. And moving on to what we'll be working on. As for the GnoSoft interface, we'll be developing the remaining pages for earn, staking, and governance, and developing the front-end logic and starting integration with realms and backend for the swap function. And for the backend and realms, we'll be adding more test cases and enhancing our code and integrating with the front end. And I think I've covered everything, and I want to hand it over to Dongwon for the support section.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't think there's not I don't think there's much to talk about in the support section for now. But I wanted to thank Manfred for sharing his suggestions for new testnet, new concept of a testnet. I think this new concept will be beneficial for chain developers with more stable testing environment, and for contract developers to be able to continue their development in the one single testnet. So I think it'll be beneficial, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Moving right along, Birdie, do you guys want to give an update on No Mobile?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay.
So, sorry. We're working on completing the gRPC interface. Remy has it working with a local socket on Android and now iOS. So that's good. I've been working on trying to use Amino, and that generated one question which we put on an issue. But I think it's gonna work. It's fairly intuitive for me. And after that, well, we're gonna work a little bit more on other parts of the interface. I don't have my notes right here. Last week we talked about plans for fetching the full transaction history from the blockchain, and we looked at that a little bit, but it's not as important. And so I think we'll be able to do a lot more with the user interface now that we have Yuri back full time again. Maybe I don't know if he wants to pull it in. We had a question about whether we can swipe some of the UI code that Unblock did for Adena. since it's also React Native, but we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, we discussed that we needed some UI UX to complete our M1 release, and we saw that Adina has a good user experience, and there's a lot of components that you can get inspired by. So we are thinking about to use or reuse those components. So we are here to ask or slash get your idea or your opinion about that. If we can reuse some components, some styling from Adina, if it could be good, or what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, of course. You feel free to use any of our, um, sources, and if you need any help, you can always, chat with us in the Discord chat. Are you guys in the Discord chat, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can cover that in the Discord. There's questions about the GPL versus Apache licensing and stuff, but I'm sure we can sort that out. And then finally, there was some progress on the Gno.land package that is part of part of Gno. And so we already talked with Manfred about some next steps on that. So we're going to be pulling that into Gno Mobile and trying to make our code more directly based off of that. Like I said, if we won't have time today. We can talk with Manfred offline about this question about if there's comments in the Go structure and then you use Amino to turn it into protobuf, how to preserve the comments. It's a little thing, but I think it would be nice. And
this is issue 1157.
yeah, the one that I mentioned. Yes.
Yeah, it was actually also in the notes.
Yeah, in my notes. Yeah, thanks for reading our notes. And finally, just for fun, I have a stupid question. So we keep working with these types, and for example, when you call, you need gas wanted and gas fee, and gas wanted is an integer and gas fee is a string, and it's the same on the command line. For some reason, the gas wanted parameter is a number, and the gas fee is a string with Huguenot at the end. If it's not a waste of time, is there a quick answer as to why those are different? And will they ever both be ints or both be strings? If there's no immediate wisdom on that, then we don't have to waste time on it. But it's just kind of weird.
Just quick comment, Jeff. One is a fee. The other one is a gas. Gas is a integer number. A fee is a money. Basically, the entire structure of the fee cost is calculated by the gas price times gas wanted equal to fee. So that is the formula.
Huh.
So that's why you see that the denominator is a string, because that's a money unit.
Aren't they both money? Well, I guess this is I don't
Gas
want
is not. Gas is not money. Gas is just a unit of gas. And I think there's a. If you look at check out the original Cosmos SDK document on their website, you will see actually explains how those three are related to each other. Yeah.
I see. So gas wanted is just some integer that ends up being part of a bigger formula, which becomes money.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I guess gas wanted would only make sense in the context of what you all decide is the final formula. So, okay, that makes more sense. That'll help me keep it straight while because we keep re-implementing this little structure with all these parameters, and so that's great.
Yeah, check out the Cosmos SDK's document. There's a concept called the minimum gas price, okay, which used for all the validator to set minimum gas price so that they can block certain like spam. Yeah, there's a small formula. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think that's it.
Do we want to, the Manfred or team, do we want to go over the question related to amino protofiles that Jeff's brought up?
I actually replied on the
Yep.
PR. Basically, I think it's always a good thing to forward informative comments. I just don't want that we use this system to basically configure protobuf from Golang. So forwarding comments, sure. And if at some point it really makes sense that famous protobuf comments are set, I suggest either trying to make it by default, so maybe with good conditions regarding the, I don't know, something we can guess basically, so without any comment. And if at some point we need protobuf specific comments that are not, that does not make sense outside of protobuf, I suggest just adding a dedicated helper so that it's obvious that it's not about trying to fake comments or, basically look at this, but I think we can go in your direction, but we should not make comments something ugly for protobuf.
Right. Well, the problem is that Amino uses type reflection for the Go struct, and that does not have the comments that people typed in the source code. Is that right?
Actually, we have ways to extract comments, even if we use type reflection, especially for the script, which is generating protobuf. It is importing all your things, but we have all the source code. Maybe it's a little bit more code, but if the goal is to parse code that we have locally to extract some comments, I think it's doable with a few helpers.
Oh, okay.
We can go to that direction. Just make sure to keep the comments focused on explaining things for humans. And if we want machine-specific comments, okay, that's actually very Golang centric, but it should not be mixed.
No, I'm thinking of the human ones, that explain what that, this field is for you to specify the gas fee or something.
Yeah.
And,
well, if we're not mixing, we should just make a clear distinction, maybe dedicated lines for humans, dedicated lines for machines. But right now, protobuf is very inline centric. And if you mix inline with both information and configuration, it stops becoming crazy.
Well, maybe I need to look into the tools which would parse the actual original Go source code and see if those help.
Right now, look at in the MISC folder, there is a proto-gen something, I think. And right now, it's just importing Golang. So there is no AST parsing. But since again, it's a local code base, etc., I think it's doable to just extract comments from each important object that are reflected.
What? Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just being stupid, but I did look at Gen Proto. That's what we're following, and it passes in the Go structure, which you've already lost the comments at that point.
Yeah, but that's why I think in general, we have many small tools just responsible to extract some things from code. That's even the essence of most of the project. I think just having a helper in the Gen Proto that can look up the comments of an object that was reflected by its name and file location, then we can do whatever you want. But yeah, I confirm that we lose the comments, so it's about finding them again.
Okay. Well, we can talk later. You and I won't be on. Well, I should mention that I'm going to Barcelona on Friday, and I'll see Milos there. That'll be fun. By the way, the conference schedule is now online, so if anybody cares. So I won't be able to talk with you on Friday, but we can do this. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. We're just going to have to parse the original Go source code and get the comments. And okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
We'll keep talking on the issue. Thanks.
Then we quickly, maybe territory. I think you're Norman. You guys are the last no contributor update wise.
Yep. So recently we opened the PR against the Gno repo, which contains all the contracts we've developed so far. So I'll link it right now. And there is one markdown file with an overview of the contract, so explaining a bit what each contract does or is supposed to do. And we have also a tutorial on how to create your own DAO with the framework, with the DAO framework. So we have the full DAO implementation. It's usable in our UI. We have a moderation too. So it's kind of generic. There is one implementation for boards and one implementation for the social feed we developed, which strives to have a feature parity with the social feed we already have on CauseWasm. So some modules in this are still crude, that we need to be fully implemented and improved and checked for security and stuff. But the whole thing is working. And next, we will work on the grant management program, grant manager, and Justice DAO, which is used to provide third-party arbitrations of problems. I know there's a better word in English, but I don't find it. And that's all for us.
Cool. So for the pull request the pull request 1150. Is there anyone? So it just needs the team needs to approve and merge it. Then
I don't know if it's meant to be merged, but we were asked to open a PR with our snapshots, the snapshot of what we are doing. So let's do that.
Cool.
But it's in R territory and P territory there with no extra files. So I guess it could be merged.
Just put it in non-draft mode when you want us to review. And maybe it makes sense, since you have an ecosystem of contracts, to just keep the P/demo and just make P/territory, or maybe P/moderation DAO, or any name. Because P/demo/territory/ your packages, I think it's redundant.
Okay. Well, we'll do P/territory and R/territory, I think.
Yeah. Is it really territory, or is it mostly the generic moderation DAO?
There's generic stuff in it, but I propose that we keep everything in territory for now, and stuff that you have reviewed and approved, then we move out of the territory sub there into demo, or I don't know which directory. Or do you want to?
Yeah, I will review and I will see which ones make the most sense to be shared more globally. But yeah, just put your PR in non-draft mode when you are ready for reviews, and we will start reviewing and letting comments.
Okay.
Okay, so now we've gone through all of that, all of the contributors, and we move on to the no team topics. I think I will share my screen because there's a lot of issues right now related to the work that Morgan's been doing. It might just be easier to screen share. But before that, I just wanted to say we have, there's a new team member, Leon, who's joined the DevRels team, so joined John. And I think maybe a week ago. Yeah, so just be aware that you'll be seeing him around. So welcome, Leon.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And I'm always open to any discussion, and if anybody needs any help, I'll be glad to try to provide it. So just ping me wherever you can.
Yeah. Okay, so
Michelle, you I don't know if you saw, I believe Morgan canceled the chess meeting. So
Yeah.
if
So,
you want, we have more time.
yeah, I was just going to, Morgan, if that's okay with you, I was going to screen share all of the issues that I've added to the agenda that mostly relate to you.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just do it so that you can talk through them, and then if that makes sense, I can just or did you want to screen share?
Let me pull up the agenda.
I just thought it might be helpful that people can read through them because there's quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Let me screen share.
Okay.
Okay. So, as you folks are aware, we had to cancel the presentation for today, as we had a bit of a slowdown on both publishing the website and on the presentation. Hopefully we'll still be able to do like a round of internal testing before the public contest, and we'll let you know both through Signal and through email once that is available. But yeah, I'll sort of go through the issues that Michelle's collected for me. So as these ones, yes. I'll quickly try to talk about the old ones. Right. Okay. So these were the old ones, and these are the new ones. So the first one, which I think is interesting, is probably this one. This one might be a bit confusing, but essentially, like, it's referring to the fact that whenever we have like a list of closures, like here. So we're adding a bunch of closures that we're generating here to the appends slice. Can you hear me all right, or is there a lot of background noise?
I can hear you actually quite okay. I don't know if anyone else has issues.
No, it's perfect. That's right.
Okay. Just because there's street noise, and I wanted to make sure noise cancellation was doing its job. Anyway, so as I was saying, there's so this axe here that is referenced here, like it's as if the reference here is held after the iterations of the loop. So whenever when we call fn here, it just does println of x with the x's last value, which is going to be 303. And this is obviously different in Go, where instead, like when you create a closure like this, the variables that are used in the closure are sort of stored to make it so that when you call the closure, like, it uses the right values, right? And I had a very useful application for this pattern when I found out that this couldn't use, which was a bit disappointing. I'm just gonna quickly. Oh, here was going through some more issues, but essentially one sort of thing I was trying to implement in the test realm to try to do strong testing was to have like this system to write tests. So as you can see here, I'm writing like a test with a very simple language. So name of the test, create a new game, and these things like assert that the result from the previous comment is something else, like, or they assert that the result contains state checkmated, winner white, or they contain the FEN representation, FEN representation, which is correct in this case. And this was the way that I originally planned to do this, was to simply have closures here, which would perform both the comments in the code and the checking functions for the test. But then I had to give up on that and instead change it to another approach, which can come in substitution for that, and instead use like slices where we copy the values that would be used inside of the closure if we were to use closures here. So test common new game. As you can see here is just this slice, and it has a run method, which is will be then be executed to actually run the test. So this was annoying to find out, and one that I think we need to figure out by mainnet. This one is probably easy to fix, but it's a bit annoying. So as you can see here, like this is, I think the title is a bit misleading because actually it's probably more generic in the sense that you can't append nil in general when you have variadic arguments of interfaces. So yeah, it doesn't it doesn't really understand what to do here, and like it just spits out a panic which says unspecified generic varg args. I think probably because it can't convert them to be like some kind of slice by inferring their types, so it just gives up on that. There was a related issue to this one. And which is also regarding append, which I found while implementing the math package. And so you can see here that we are trying to append to P two variables, which, ultimately, we can read that they should be of the same type because we have X and Y, right? But X is declared as a constant and Y instead is declared as a variable. So when we use also, like as for the last issue, this I think applies to variable vargs in general. So when you have like the dot type syntax at the end of a function call, variadic. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So as you can see here, because one is of the begin type that we use for variables, like for constant variables which are untyped. Then as a consequence, like it spits out an error similar to the last one, whereby one is a begin and the other one is int, and they're incompatible, and so it gives up. And so it doesn't attempt to perform conversion of X to being an int, which should be done in this case. This one is probably like annoying more than anything, but we can't recover from division by zero panics. So and the reason for that is that these are simply spitted out by the Go runtime. So when we go into op division or whatever it is in the Gno.VM bytecode, we just have it just panics without way of the Go code to actually recover that. And I think we have in some cases that you can recover panics from Go code, but I don't think like this one is one of the covered cases. And anyway, also probably like the easy version is to like catch if we're trying to do a division operation where which has 0 on the right hand side, and if so, like generate a machine panic instead of relying on the Go runtime to do a panic. But yeah, this should be relatively straightforward. This is an interesting one also because it's a very sort of weird edge case, which doesn't often happen, but it is also like relative to what we have in in our preprocessor for constant types. So there is in the package, in the math package, which by the way I'll briefly take a detour to say that I've been to work on GNOME chess, I've been implementing the math and math bits package, and which is basically identical now to the Go math package, with some modifications, mostly around GNOME bugs that I've talked about, or removing like the if have arch blocks, which is used to convert from like math sqrt into being just an sqrt instruction on the processor. So yes, the problem here is that we have we have some floating point values that if we try to divide, then they become so infinitesimal that as a floating point they could only be represented as 0. And obviously the prime example of this is smallest non-zero float 64. And when you try to do this operation, as a constant expression, because like this is the smallest non-zero float 64 is actually constant, then what you get is that we can't convert big deck to float 64 because it's too small. While this is for the Go runtime like perfectly valid code, even though it outputs 0, and I think it should be that way. That way here as well. And floats not allowed in increment decrement statements. Yes, this is one that was relatively easy to fix, which I also added in the code for math bits. So in the operation increment decrement file, we did not specify some types as we were supposed to, and this problem did not arise on when you were doing like equal comparisons, or when you were doing or when you were doing like increments using the plus equal syntax. So you could just like if you encountered this bug, and if you encounter this bug before this PR is merged, then the solution is simply to convert b plus plus to being b plus equal 1. But yeah, the underlying problem is that if b was float 32 or the float 64, then you cannot perform increment operations on it, which is probably just an oversight when adding this. We should be at the last two, yeah. So we have mixing and type negative floats. This one is still on constant expression evaluation. And although this one is about actually giving incorrect results. So as you can see here, we have like 6 different representations of what we can see to be logically like the same expression, because you always have -3 times 1 divided by 2. And it seems that when in evaluating a constant expression, we mix what we parse as being a big int, and then you try to do an operation on the right-hand side with a big deck. So for like, because we can see here that it's a decimal value. Then if that happens, we then silently drop the minus sign, and it just becomes 1.5. And if I recall correctly, we also had the case where like you can verify this in a quite straightforward manner here. But if we drop the sign, like the result stays the same. So this is not like that we have a -1 times -1 somewhere. It's just that the sign is ignored of this value. And then finally, this is one that I expect some of you may have already counted, and which is that if we try to do FMT printf, as a reminder, the FMT package is available, but is only available in test contexts. which have a different set of packages you can import. And if you try to do this, so with an unexported field here, there's like it won't work. It won't be able to do that because the Gno.VM tries to convert this second parameter to the printf function to being a Go slice. So it uses like reflect make type and creates the struct and so on. And so it's creating the Go type, and then it's trying to set the value of B, which is unexported. And so what happens here is that you get the reflect panic because it's doing a thing which is not allowed under reflection rules. So the hack that I implemented to do this was to do this. So in the code that takes care of converting from Gno struct to a Go struct, I added a simple uppercase X at the beginning of the identifier for the unexported fields in the struct, and after that, the GNOME runtime is perfectly happy to execute the example file here. Although obviously, like when printing that second value, you'll get that instead of being struct v string, it's a struct xv string because we prefix the x here. And this is possibly one where I think we can discuss a bit what we should do about it. Because my rationale about what we want to do in this case is that we eventually want to get rid of what's internally known as Go native. So right now we have two ways that native functions are actually implemented, because there's one extra one aside from ones discussed in native bindings. So we have the Go native functions, and these, like, you can identify them if you look through tests imports.go. So if we have like the FMT package here, yes. So define Go native type, or actually define Go native value, exactly. So when we do define Go native value, we define that there is a printf function that has the same signature in printf and calls sprintf. And you might be wondering, well, if this is already a thing, then why did you bother creating the whole native bindings PR and implementation? And the reason for that is that this always uses like the conversion I was talking about before. So in order to convert the parameters that I passed to go to the function, such as the string here and the variadic arguments here, they pass through Gno.to-go, which you should be able to see by going to Gno.vm, pkg, Gno.lang, Gno.to-go. Actually, probably Go native. Yes. Yeah. So we should have Gno.to-go value. Exactly. So Gno.to-go value like does what I was talking about before. So it converts like a typed value to be a Go value. And this has like some kind of bunch of implementation problems, like which are mostly going undetected because, as I said, like this only works for a specific subset of functions, such as FMT println and all the FMT functions. And generally we don't have any of the Go native calls in actual, like when executing GNO code. Normally we only have it when executing GNO test functions and test code, or well, anyway, in the testing environment where this function is executed essentially. So because it happens in such a limited subset, like we don't encounter often that there are actually some limitations about this implementation. and which come to start from, for instance, the structs, where we can't have structs with unexported values inside of them, because otherwise we get a panic. And like we don't have conversions of func types, obviously, and a bunch of other things. And this is simply because we need to convert the values to work with functions that are not even aware of that Gno exists, such as FMT println. And in general, where the native bindings implementation instead relies on a different sort of functionality, internal functionality of the Gno VM, which is instead that of native body. So sorry if this is a bit technical on the Gno VM inner workings, but hopefully it's also a bit instructive. What is it? We have nodes. So native body. So we have, for instance, we have this define native function, which is used in several places, among which those are the native bindings PR that I implemented. But it's also used, for instance, for the Gno VM's sort of universe function, which are in universe.go. And these are things like the println bootstrapping function. So this is implemented using define native under the hood. It's not implementing by using this Go native or define Go native value. So these are the two ways that we have. We either have define native, which uses native body, as you can see here, or we have define Go native value, which performs all kind of weird conversions between Gno and Go, and is far more error prone in general. So in light of that, there's probably some better ways to fix the issue, which do not involve just sticking an X in front of the field and calling it a day. But what I'm wondering is, do we agree that the Go native the Go native sort of functionality should be dropped from the Gno VM? And if so, do we agree that a temporary fix for this problem, which affects both FMT printf, but also things like t.logf, that this patch could be an acceptable fix for this? That's all from me for today, and I'd like to know what you folks think of this.
Yes, if I may, Morgan, most of the issues that you have raised, most of these I have met them at some time in the development of my previous project on Yagi, and they are not so surprising. So I think I could help for a few of them, because I have already worked on some very similar problems on Yagi itself. I know that the implementation is different and there are some different design choices, but I'm sure I could be faster by working on the ones that you have mentioned. And just for information, the issue regarding in fact, the strategy that you propose regarding the structure, where all the struct fields must be exported, this is something that I have solved in Yagi by making sure that any field that is defined in a structure created in Yagi was exported, even if the structure was presented as private fields. In fact, internally, they were always exported, and there is no workaround on that. It's mandatory if we create structures in Go to have all the struct fields exported. Otherwise, we at sometimes or one other we meet a panic, and it could be in JSON or it could be in printf, as you mentioned. So yes, the structure fields, for sure, they have to be emulated by making them, by prefixing them with an uppercase, an internal uppercase letter to make sure they are always exported internally. And also, and for example, the one regarding the closure where the closure all gives the same results instead of a different result. This is also something that I had to solve several times, and I'm pretty sure I can help on that. So maybe I will devote some days to, if it's okay, I will devote some days looking at this code, at these particular issues that you have mentioned.
Yeah, just to clarify, like the reason I was presenting this issue is just because like I wanted to report a bit on my findings, but it is not currently in my plans to solve all of them by myself. So as you clearly, like as you specified, and it is very obvious, you have much more experience than me in implementing Go parsers and virtual machines. So please do take on whatever you have capacity for and whatever you feel like you could make a contribution on. Like I just wanted to add on what you said about unexported struct fields. As far as I know, there is one way we could like write in an unexported struct field, and that would be if we use unsafe. Like if we made a modification on the reflect package and removed one of its checks that prevents us from writing to unexported fields. Though that of course is is probably not like the cleanest solution, but it is one solution if we want to maintain the structures to match them one-to-one from Go to Gno. But as I said, I think that approach possibly makes sense if we want to invest into having this Go to Gno Gno to Go to conversion. And the point I was trying to make before is that I don't think we necessarily do.
Yeah, Mark, feel free to self-assign you on the first issue you would like to work on. And yeah, please, you are more than welcome to help us debug this and to debug the upcoming bugs coming from people making like Morgan, building something more complex and opening small bugs one at a time. And just Ray, do you have feedback on this question about removing completely Go native or not? I think you are the one with the most knowledge in the room for this.
I think there's the reason that we have native method or is mainly I believe is for performance. So whatever that we try to port using GNO and running a virtual machine, that might not. I don't think all of them have been passed through the performance test. And I believe one of the reasons that we use native is so that all this recursive or longer loop manipulation, especially on a bits stuff, that we can directly use the native method, so that is faster than running purely in a smart contract written or port origin, copy over originally from a Go file. Okay, I think that's the main reason we use native. So before we say we're gonna get rid of the native, we want to make sure whatever we put it over actually pass through those performance tests. And then, yeah.
What I was saying though was not about removing native values and functions and types completely, because as you know, I've been working very closely to this topic for a while. But what I was saying is to instead of having two ways to go about this as it is right now, right? Because you can have either define native or define Go native value, which actually do two different things and do that, like they use two different functionality, right?
Yeah, I think that's the two entries. I haven't figured out what's the reasoning behind it. I need to dig out, but there may be a reasoning behind. They have a different ways to inject native method. I don't know. Yeah, but maybe we can merge them. But we need to find out why there's two ways first. Yeah.
Like from what I know and what I could see from the code, from what I understood, the reason we had Go native was mostly to do like bootstrapping of the Gno VM. So obviously when Jay started working on the Gno VM, he needed like a bunch of functionality that was reliant on other functionality, and so it was just easier instead of like to implement the FMT package, to implement reflection and everything, to just implement a converter from Gno to Go, right? Although, like, obviously this approach uses reflection, which aside from being slow, like it also loses like type safety within the code. And additionally, like the way that Go native is implemented is all with these small caveats that there are here and there, right? Which is like ultimately what I was driving at was that we get rid of that, and any things that we need as native functions, either as you said for performance or because they need to use the GNOME machine, they are just implemented using define native instead of define Go native.
Yeah, I don't have more comment on that. So I just to answer the overall question, we need to have the Go native for performance. That's the reason. And if we need to have a different way, let's find out. It's if there's no advantage to have different way, we can merge those to one way to inject a native method. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone? I guess you answered Drago's question. I didn't know if there was anything else, Dragos, you wanted to bring up around it, or if that was enough. The link that you provided.
I just want to remind that actually all of those awesome stuff came from the simple idea of making a Gno.sh application, but Morgan and Miloš took the exercise as something like, okay, and I will open an issue for each bug. So basically, they were not core team members during the weeks, but expert users. And I think we should basically do this continuously. So after Gno.sh, maybe the development team can help. Maybe we can even hire people in the development team, or the development team can work with grantees, especially the students, maybe, to continuously have people building bigger applications and pushing the limits, and having this culture of sharing. So basically doing the same but continuously. It was very, 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 very useful. It was also a good way for Morgan, I think, to deep dive into many aspects of the project. So it can also become an onboarding task for people joining the team, both DevRel and co-engineers. So anyone with engineering skills that needs to have a lot of knowledge soon. So I want to say how much this experience was great for the project, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree on that. I like it. I learned a lot about the GNOME VM and during this, and I you reached the gas limit per block. So I'm happy. I'm happy to say that if you try to publish the chess realm I'm working on the chain right now, it will just fail because there's not enough gas. But aside from that. Yeah, I also agree with you, Manfred, on what you said. even if it just helps to uncover more bugs like these ones that I found, which are mostly some have come by trying to port over existing code, some have been done by trying to do some code design patterns that I thought were possible in Gno, but for a reason or another were not. And yeah, shall we move from chat to discussion what we were talking about with Dragos about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because not everyone will know if they listen to the recording or anyone else listens to the recording later what's being discussed. So yeah.
So just to sum up, Dragos was asking about the implementation of math/rand in the GNO VM. And I pointed to him about to Gno.land pdemo rand, thinking might do what he needed, and then I found out that that package actually requires math random, so it's only available in test context. Yeah, I think depending on what the package math rand depends on, Dragos, if you need the package, you can port it over to the standard library, like adding a new standard library package with like just copying over the source code for Go's math rand.
Thanks. I will try to look into this, and yeah, probably we'll go with CryptoRand because it's more suitable for this game. But nevertheless, I thought to ask about my friend because it's easier.
Well, we can't actually have CryptoRand because we can't have because CryptoRand would be undeterministic, right? So validators will not be able to have consistent results reading from CryptoRand. So CryptoRand is probably not going to be implemented.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
You can have math rand that will, from a determined value, from a determined seed, provide random looking values. You can also expect at some point to have external solutions like I think more probably Norman spoke about what they are doing at Territory with the VRF. So you can expect things like round DAO, an external DAO with a consensus pushing basically entropy on chain. But yeah, you cannot expect to have a deterministic value across validators for very short commits. Potentially, you can expect the block time to be between 1 and 8 seconds in average. So you can't expect maybe 100 validators to have the same random value. So stay tuned for this. And right now, just have unsafe but still random. You can have random stuff, but that are just guessable for people with a good hardware, with full nodes and ability to basically push their transactions in priority. So for instance, a modified validator can both know the previous value, simulate to change the parameter in the transaction, and at the moment the random value is in his favor, they will publish transaction. So I just suggest you to give up on trying to make something with infinite security for this until we have a better solution to offer. But if it's just to get okay enough security random, so for people using the chain with normal usages, then you can already use the mass random library.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And also, like as we start to target more app developers, this will be really helpful. Morgan. So, should we move on from this discussion, or were there any more, Morgan, that you wanted to get feedback on, or that we should be discussing, like the no to go, or like the terminating statement analysis, which I think we talked about last time, but I don't know if there was a conclusion.
I think in general, most of these are just bugs. I think, yeah,
Okay.
There's one comment that I would like to add, which is that some of these bugs, as I said, were like especially referring, for instance, to the increment decrement statements. So 1151. I think this bug could have been avoided in the first place if we had the GNO VM at pre-processing stage, say, quote unquote, optimize this, well, rewrite the statements. So by going from being like B++ to being B plus equal 1. And that way, like, it's a single, like, it's rewritten to another statement. And it goes through another like operation. So it goes like through up at a sign, I think it's called, which doesn't have the bug I was talking about. And I think, yes, there's like a bunch of places where this is the case, where we could like fix some functionality or simplify some functionality by reducing, for instance, even the amount of operations that the GNO VM has by rewriting some statements to be something else, but which is functionally equivalent. And I don't think we currently have much of that right now. Like just before this call, I was looking through some code. I think like one of the few things we do is that we implicitly add like an operation, an up return when exiting a function which has no return values, no return parameters. So what I was talking about the GNO VM not having terminating statement analysis, that doesn't apply for functions which don't have return values, because the GNO VM itself like implicitly adds return with no values at the end of that function. So that bug doesn't happen there, as you know, it shouldn't. So my question for the room is like, should we like talk and think about going into the direction where we have like we have the preprocessor also doing real and effective optimizations of GNO code, and you know, like the next step for this, I think, you know, it comes to like doing some optimizations which could be done at the source level as well. Such as inline functions. So if a function calls another function, which just returns the value of another function, we can instead simplify that. Like I think right now in the GNOME VM, this just generates 3 different frames. But we could just simplify this to be one, right? And yeah, just wanted to gather the opinion from everyone on this.
I don't know, this is such a high level that, of course, we need to measure, but I suspect it wouldn't make too much of a difference.
Can you elaborate, or like what is it that to measure or make much of a difference?
Inlining it at the interpreter level.
Okay.
I want to quickly go back to the native questions Morgan had. Basically, I quickly went through the 2 places. One is that we injected native method in runtime. The other one is we do that in the import, which it says define Go native value. I believe both have their meanings, and they serve different purpose. You know, I don't think we can get rid of either of them. Yeah, the runtime one that we use is for specifically calling a method in runtime so that we can gain performance. The other one, I believe, in the import text using Go native value, that actually is import entire package. And also the value imported is so that they can, this type are available for the VM to make a calls to those native method. Those serve different purpose. It's the quick comments.
Yeah, but what I was reasoning about is that if we have, like, if we can convert, like, what is outstanding in that is using Go native values to instead use native bindings or native injections, the current code base, then we can. Sorry, just getting a bit confused. If we can convert them to use the native injections, or just define native instead of define Go native, then I think we can still have the functionality while removing a lot of code, which in my opinion is using some kind of way unneeded / duplicate / error prone, because like this comes from, as I said, my experience, like trying to work with functions which use Go native.
Sure, I believe that there's definitely the space for us to improve, and also I believe there's a more important aspect on kind of this binding. The reason is actually in our developer environment we're using shim to kind of glue to mark all those native methods, and actually we use a shim to compile and check locally in the dev environment to verify those injected methods with the correct signature. I think that checking sync to be able to really automatically sync whatever we created in the native injection and the shim Go, actually that is very useful, so that we don't have to write the signature in two places, and actually should automatically sync together. That's all for the comments, and we can take all the discussions offline, and also I'm going to write some comments on the ticket.
Yeah.
Sure.
Should we also talk about this one, Morgan, just because it's in relation to what Peter was saying?
Yeah. Yeah, just quickly mentioning, like, inlining was not, like, of course inlining is another pair of hands, because it raises issues about what happens like if a statement inside of a function which has been like removed because it's been inlined, it panics, like what happens in that case, right? Because we unwind the stack and so on. But like what I'm really not necessarily talking about inlining by rewriting function calls to be the true function calls that actually happen. Like one easy one for me, which I think contributes positively to like making our code base maintainable, is rewriting like the operations of the kind of variable plus equal value, right, or variable minus equal value, like change all of those to remove like to be just simple assignments. So simply by doing variable equal variable plus value instead of the plus equal, and I think that would reduce like all the all the operations we have like this here, and just fall back on the normal code we have for handling like division or addition or multiplication.
Right. It's a good thing, but it will be pretty difficult to actually do, because the most complicated part of an inliner is to actually be able to make the decision whether it's better to inline or not. And that can get pretty complicated because you are essentially trying to figure out whether you would make the code slower by inlining or not inlining. Did I say that right? Sometimes you need to inline, it would make the code faster, and sometimes if you inline, it will make it slower. And that depends on many things which you need to consider, like the instruction cache. Because if the benefits of you inlining but increasing the code size so much more that then you get cache evictions on instructions more, then it actually ends up being slower. And this is just one of the things that needs to be considered. So I think it would be a tremendous effort, and I'm not sure if at such a high level whether we would get the results that we're looking for, if that makes sense. We might, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, which is like I agree. Inlining is probably a much larger topic, and I should not have brought it up. It's understanding how to do it and how to do it effectively. It may not even quite be a question, as we discussed several times, about of something we can do in the Gno VM. But it may be something that we can do in GNO RS or in Parscan with logic of not having GNO VM necessarily be the fastest VM, but be like the one which serves as a reference and which is clear and understandable and maintainable, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that. Keep in mind though that there is, whether you look at GCC or Clang or Visual Studio or LVM, none of them give the when you look at lower level languages like obviously C++ and Rust, that all use these compilers, they'll have APIs for inlining that the programmer can use. And both languages have always inline this attribute on a function and never inline. However, because the decision of whether to inline or not is so difficult and depends on many things that happen internally that the programmer might not necessarily be aware of, because they're internal compiler things. Always inline does not always inline, and never inline doesn't always not inline. Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a very difficult thing to get right. And if we want to do it in the Rust VM, we can, simply because we can use the LVM inliner, right? So we don't have to write it. Although we can look at Go's inliner, it's much simpler than LVM and GCC.
Yeah, I saw that. It's very like I saw the code for it a few months ago, and I sort of thought, wow, this is actually really simple. But you know, I think the Go developers acknowledge that might be better if it was changed, because like this, it doesn't necessarily, you know, understand when it's always good for a function to be inlined. But I've had a bunch of cases where I wished my functions were inlined, but they were not.
Yeah, and in some cases you might have been right, and in others you might have been wrong because of other optimizations, which wouldn't have kicked in if it was inlined, basically.
In Go, they went for the to catch the low hanging fruits, and they take the decision to inline only in very conservative way, in very simple case. For example, if you have a very small function and only if it is called inside the loop with a minimum of level of iterations, and so it's very conservative and it's a low hanging fruit. But then Go is still a slow language, and they don't care about. In fact, they won't go as far in terms of analysis. And then, in fact, to go further, I think the other approach is to perform profile guided optimization, PGO. So the decision is taken by monitoring the runtime after a few iterations on real code, and then the compiler or the linker can take the decision to inline, but it's too far-fetched, I think, for our way of developing and for an interpreter. So we should not enter this. We should probably not enter this what all at least at first, at least in the first iterations.
Yeah, I think the Go inliner also checked how many arguments you have and the types of the arguments.
Speaking of VMs, I don't know, Pitar and Mark, if you have an update on, or like want to share some things on your respective Rust and Go VMs?
Yeah, go on, Peter.
Mark, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you. In fact, I'm at this moment I'm working not on the code generation itself, but on the parser part itself of ParseScan. So I'm doing a big refactoring, and the thing I'm doing is, in fact, is trying to see if I can build a kind of single pass compiler. So this is the simplest form of a compiler which works in a single pass. So in Go, it's not possible to do it 100% because you can have forward declarations, but in fact you can approach to be quite a single pass, and then it's then the way it's to perform what I call syntax directed translation, which means there is no intermediate data structures between the source code and the bytecode. So there is not even an AST. It's a direct generation from it's the most direct generation of code that you can think of. And this is the simplest also to implement, but it's a complete redesign. So I'm looking to, in fact, I'm in the middle of putting the ground to do that, and then after I can complete the compiler and expand on it, and that will be the result. I think will be much simpler and much faster in terms of compiling. But the code that will be generating, so that will be bytecode, the code will not be pretty much optimized, but that doesn't matter because most of the optimization will come from the runtime itself, from the bytecode itself. the way to run the bytecode and not the compiling. And I want the compiling to be as fast as possible, and I want to be as simple and as fast as possible, and also maintainable. So very easy to extend and to maintain. And this is made possible by the fact that I have made the tokenizer. So the first step of passing languages. So the tokenization is done differently in my case, and that allows, in fact, it allows to achieve simplifications in parsing, and it took me time to fully understand that. So this is what I'm working on, and unfortunately, I cannot show yet the progress, but when yeah, I still need a few days or maybe a few weeks more to be able to showcase exactly what it gives. But there is a branch. If you want to look at the code, there is a branch which is called Parscan Redux, and this branch is available on the GitHub repo. It's not in the main branch. It's a branch which is called Parscan Redux, and that's it. That's it for me on the VM side.
Yeah, I've updated a couple of the guys, but obviously we have more people here. So some of you already know what I'm about to say. I'm working on typed no values. Why do I need them? Well, I was going through the Go examples on their website, the examples of the language, what it can do, and the features. And I reached the recursive closures page, and I saw that it's not working, and it's kind of a special case. Maybe it would be easier if you quickly saw what I'm talking about. Can everybody see?
Yep.
So, can you read this, or is it too small?
It's okay. It's kind of small.
Yeah.
I think I could. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is a recursive closure. And it is a special case because, as we all know, closures can capture their environment. And this closure captures itself. So this, at this point, has a value of no, right? Because it's a nullable type. And when we compile, we see this identifier, and it's resolved here, right? And so this value is no. And after we compile this and we are assigned, this is no longer no. So I need type no values and double indirection, because this is fine to be no when it's compiled. However, when it runs, it cannot be no. It needs to be pointing to the same thing that it points here, right? So this is a no pointer. It points to nowhere, right? And here we actually create a new object with a different pointer. So this points here because what we need here is not a plain no pointer, but we need double indirection. So we need another pointer like this one, let's say. And this one needs to point to no, needs to point to a no pointer in this case. And here it needs to have the same pointer and point to somewhere else, right? And so when we run this, imagine this. I can actually show you. So we have this data structure that has a vector of captured objects, which are captured from the environment outside of the closure. And these objects are pointers, right? So we need to, when we compile, we need to get this pointer here instead of no. So when we dereference and try to call the function, it points to this one. Is this kind of clear? I'm not sure if I explained it well. So I need typed no values and double indirection in the case of closures for this reason. Yeah, this is what I'm working on now. But I'm getting there. After that, I have very few things left, although some of them are big. I need to implement IOTA, the pseudo enums in Go, and hook up the garbage collector. I think there was one more, but I don't remember now. But yeah, everything else works reasonably well. I mean, I'm sure there are bugs, but the design is here already.
As Manfred was, oh yeah, sorry.
And yeah, the other big thing is I need to write a lot of tests.
I was just wondering, because we talked about it a little while back, does it still make sense? And since Manfred was saying like the experience of Morgan and opening issues, is it possible that we open up like Dagris talked about, a VM face-off issue? Does that still make sense, like comparing the two? Mark or Pitar?
But in fact, there is two things. First, the design of the VM itself is quite similar. This is the same VM, the same virtual machine, and the same bytecode. Then the virtual machine implementation is different between the Go VM, the implementation in Go that I have written, and the Rust implementation that Peter has written. And then there is another difference, which is the way to generate the bytecode. I'm doing a code generator in Go, and Peter is doing the same code generator also in Rust. So there is many things to compare, in fact, and then many things to, in fact, to analyze. But I think it's still maybe, I don't know what others are thinking, but I think it's still maybe a bit too early to make this this go off. And we have already partial results regarding the bytecode execution. Once we have generated bytecode, we already know that the Rust VM is approximately between 2 and 3 times faster than the Go, the Go VM. Then for the Go code generation, it's still too early. And I would say, from my point of view, the work that Peter has done so far is amazing, and he has done much farther than myself on the code generation. But I expect that I will reach out quickly, and I expect also that in the end, the code generation I'm doing will be quite simple and as simple as possible, I think, and that's why I'm making this effort as well, and that the other advantage is that it will still be in Go, so that will be maybe another advantage for this project.
Okay.
But and also the design I'm doing could be also reused as well in Rust, because it will be so simple that the port to Rust of my code generator will be also super easy to do. So it's maybe too early to go further than the result that we already have, and or maybe the rest we should be the first to achieve, maybe or the first to implement a full Go compiler. I don't know, but and at this time I think Peter is still in advance for the moment.
Yeah, I think your design is amazing, and it really is simple. But if we want to port that to Rust, we would have the same issues as because you're using the data structures from the Go runtime. So your type, the design is committed to using the Go runtime, and when you move languages, you don't have the Go runtime, and you cannot simply use. You have to implement functions and everything else, right? All the built-in types. There's no runtime. This is the problem.
Okay, when you guys think it's a good time, we can do that, because I know we've included it in the More You Know, some of the comparisons that you guys have made between the two. Okay, moving along, since we're kind of getting close to the time. I don't know. There was a question I had. It may not require a lot of discussion here, but there was an incoming request. Does anyone have any thoughts on multi-sig for Gno.land? Is that something we should be investigating?
We already have, or maybe we don't have, but we know how to do basic built-in multi-sig support. So basically having Gno.k supporting multi-sig, which are understood by the chain as multi-sig. Then there is a question about multi-sig, contract-based multi-sig, but actually people are working on it. Territory started working on it, and other teams made the same. So I think it will happen at some point without so many effort from the core team here. And I'm not sure we want to add something, but a related topic we have in mind, and I had a question recently from someone else from the core team, is about the way we have with J to add a new layer in authentication, where we can create something similar to browser cookies that we can name sessions, where you can expect the chain to not only have a table of accounts where a private key identify an account and that's all, but to have two tables, one with the one with a public key for an account and one with the public keys for sessions linked to an account, so that you can, from your main account, create a session. This session can have self-destructing features, such as being destruct after 1 hour without any usage, or in general after 24 hours, or even have verbs, so that you have a command you can run by yourself to delete all your sessions from your account. And the goal for this would be to allow having more complex and more secure flows when starting your operations. So you can imagine having a ledger with operations to do physically on the device, but then being able to sign all the following requests without having to use the ledger. And it can also work for the multi-sig. I don't know if we want to allow it for multi-sig, but in the same family of things we plan to basically improve in the Web3 space in general, is to maybe add a new layer of sessions where you can, if you want to use it, start it. So basically, You can imagine a wallet, Adena, for instance. It asks you to use your key, which can be a passphrase or can be a ledger. And once it's done, it will basically sign a new public key that you just created in memory. Each time you close your browser, memory is cleared. And you can also have a logout button where you can make a call on the blockchain to delete all the sessions, but you can also just wait for the session to be self-destructed, especially if on your side the session was just in memory. And then the goal is to basically ask you only once to sign a public key, to link this public key to your account with some rules. And then you can use the in-memory private key to send transactions, and the chain will remind that this public key is actually not your main one, but associated with your account. So this is something we have in mind to increase Web3 UX. I'm not sure if we want to allow it on multi-sig, because multi-sig, I think it's pretty good to actually be slow on purpose. And I don't anticipate other work on multi-sig except maybe helping other people to write contract-based multi-sig, such as Gnosis, for instance, or Fireblocks.
Okay, there was an incoming. I've posted it there. There was an incoming pitch on it or from the grant program, and I was just curious what we were thinking. But that's really cool. Then, so there's a bit more. I don't know. We might run out of time. So I guess the question to everyone is: we've got the Gno.land fee parameters with Michael. We've got the discussion, which may be worthwhile tabling, the new integration test method for Gno.land, which is related to, I guess, issue 1117 from Gilham. That could be maybe in 2 weeks from now. And then there was I added, because it sounded interesting, the portal loop from Manfred. So out of those, is there one that we should focus on, Manfred or team?
Which one, sorry?
There's the issue of the 1106 on the Gno.land fee parameters. I don't know if that's something that's been covered extensively with the team from Michael, or if there was if it wanted to be discussed. Then there's the Gno.land integration test. Add a transaction tar driver to it's related to your new integration test method, and then the portal loop.
I need to read again, but I think it's we should maybe centralize all the work around this issue, because we have a lot of content.
Okay. The new integration test method?
For this one, I have a draft pull request open.
Yep.
I'm almost done. I just have a little experience problem with where I need to have a password to open key in the key store, Keybase, sorry. I almost fixed it. I saw with Manfred earlier last week on how I will tackle this, but I almost done on this one. Yeah.
Do you remind what's your issue with Keybase?
Yeah, it's a stdin problem where I have to use like a file with stdin.
Yeah, but I think you can merge with this current bigger TXT test, and you can find a way to make them shorter and more readable later.
Oh, I almost done with using the command .io directly to override it.
Okay.
I think it will be better anyway.
Okay. And by the way, this PR is blocking some other PRs which were great but lacking of unit test, and where unit test was really hard to write. So this PR is a good new testing feature, but also a way to start basically require unit tests for everything added on the repo, including multi-transaction things or things having very advanced context that are hard to simulate with underscore test.gno or underscore file test.gno files.
I can kind of quickly cover in like a minute too here to not take up too much time. So the fee equation is pretty much where it's been since the last tokenomics meeting on Tuesday here. So as of right now, the next step is kind of, I think, just running everything by Jay briefly. I'm aiming to do that in the next 2 weeks, and then we can kind of start looking at dev implementations. Let me share this super quick. I have CPU cycles and bytes stored as separate functions that then feed back into the main fee equation. But yeah, right now it's confirming that this is all working as Jay would like, and then it is circling back around to the what metrics we're able to pull from the chain itself, and then the easiest implementations of that. So yeah, we'll kind of cycle back there next tokenomics meeting. Hopefully by then I'll be able to discuss it, get a meeting together with everyone before then. And then another quick kind of side note is John and I have started on some very basic Game of Realms automation at this point. Not necessarily, it does have an automatic scoring feature. That's not really what's important right now, since it'll be evaluation DAO kind of manually adjusting that to where it's supposed to be. Largely, it's just instant feedback for people submitting to Game of Realms, and then eventually to mainnet. Gives them a quick confirmation message, counts their additions, deletions. We'll store it on a central file somewhere as kind of like a log or a database with like a unique identifier, so that we can kind of quickly back reward contributions, both Game of Realms and on Gno.land. And kind of moving into the future, I'm sure we will kind of work on some kind of scoring algorithm or machine learning system that's more advanced. But as of right now, it's just kind of a basic starting point. And even with some kind of algorithm or machine learning, no matter what, it's going to be up to evaluation DAO to kind of manually review everything and adjust the final reward to the fair value, whatever that consensus is at the time. So we're working on that in a private repo, but we'll probably get that over. I'm thinking hackerspace makes the most sense. So once we make a couple extra additions, we'll probably move that over in the next week or two here.
Great.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe we in the next public dev call we could get a I don't know, just a quick overview from you and focus on your work.
Yeah, it'd be great to demo it. So
yeah, cool.
John had a really cool starting point and kind of built it directly. It's like running on a free GitHub VM right now, a little Linux server that they got running somewhere. And then he set it up with CI. And so as of right now, it doesn't take any external infrastructure or anything. But yeah, I think this will be to actually really refine a grading system. I feel like it could take a year plus of a dedicated effort, but at least the dopamine hit of thank you for submitting, here's a starting value to show you that we got your submission and it's appreciated and we're working on it, and automatically storing that all somewhere so we don't have to manually comb through when we're awarding stuff. Just kind of lower hanging stuff like that, and kind of filtering out some of the easier exploits, and it'll get more complex over time.
Cool. Is it so in the last few minutes? This was, I guess, opened by you, Manfred, 2 weeks ago about the portal loop. It's issue 1108 to create a markdown render for Gno.land Home. Is this something that it says needed for launch? Is it something that requires comments and feedback, or just wanting an explanation, I guess?
Okay, sorry, I was looking for it.
Yeah.
So it is needed for launch. Actually, it's even needed for. So the goal of the portal loop is to have multiple loops happening before the launch. So if we add more milestones,
okay,
it will even be for the next one.
Okay.
So it's needed for launch because it's even needed before. We want to have the portal loop. So basically, we want iteration on this thing. We can start very simple. I think the first version can basically to replace the home page from a static page to a contract, and the contract can be maybe like the block system, something where we just publish a full markdown. So actually, the contract itself can be stupid. It can be just displaying a content and having an admin able to update the whole content. In practice, the goal of the loop is to iterate progressively so that at the end there is no more static content, but instead we only have lookups and queries and computation on other contracts, including the review DAO, maybe the GitHub one, maybe another one where we can have a registry of all the recently uploaded contracts. But at the end, we can start, we can replace the current static markdown with a contract where we can use Gno key to update the whole page and progressively have widgets that will be dynamic. So the portal loop is to start easily, and actually the thing I suggested with a simple contract is doable in a few hours because it's basically a block system but simpler. I think I already have something. Yeah, I think I merged a PR that I made which was named Pages, and Pages was basically this. My goal was to have pages that we can update easily, and then the goal was to basically have an event page, a Game of Thrones rules page, so we can just make this replace the home page with a dynamic contract, having a script that we can maintain and to update the markdown. And at some point, the goal is to progressively replace the Oracle-based script into something that will just import other contracts and read the live data.
Okay, I just shared it. I don't know if other people saw it, but I shared the issue that Manfred's talking about. So we're basically at the time. I think maybe we can just do the last the no go client and the test methods for next time, since probably there's a lot to be done on other topics. So is there anything else that anyone wants to add? Throw in the last couple of minutes. Okay, well, mine is best of luck to Morgan and Milos on all the no chess work that you guys are doing, and then we will see each other in 2 weeks after GopherCon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Merci.
Bye.
Bye.